Hello, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we're diving into the 2015 sci-fi movie known as American Ultra. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get right into it. Mike is being shackled on a table in an interrogation chamber. An interrogation officer enters the room as another guy watches from behind a one-way mirror. Mike gets glimpses of recent occurrences. On the table, there are printed representations of evidence such as a dustpan, a bloody spoon, and a shot-up teddy bear. Just 3 days ago, the tranquil days of Mike and his girlfriend Phoebe unfolded in the serene town of Limon, West Virginia. Mike, a laid-back individual with a penchant for cannabis, considered Phoebe the best thing that ever happened to him. In a bid to surprise her, Mike had meticulously planned a romantic getaway to Hawaii, intending to pop the question. However, their plans took an unexpected turn when Mike, grappling with a sudden panic attack, caused them to miss their flight. This wasn't a new occurrence for Mike, as leaving the city always triggered these debilitating episodes, leaving him puzzled about the root cause. On their way back home, Officer Watts, aware of Mike's struggles and his past run-ins with the law for illicit substances, intercepted them. Watts taunted Mike, exacerbating the already tense situation. Returning home, Mike, attempting to restore some semblance of normalcy, began preparing dinner while a visibly upset Phoebe unpacked her things. In an effort to lift Phoebe's spirits, Mike played her favorite song, all the while gazing at the engagement ring meant for her. However, their evening took a turn for the worse when Phoebe, noticing the burning food, erupted in anger. Fed up, she insisted that Mike should stop apologizing, revealing the underlying strain in their relationship. Days later, Mike dutifully goes to work, engaging in his regular routine that involves indulging in illegal substances, organizing shelves, and channeling his creativity into drawing. His unique comic book features Apollo 8A, a monkey astronaut embarking on thrilling adventures, a creative outlet during the slow business hours. During a brief smoke break outside, it becomes evident that the CIA has been covertly monitoring Mike. Meanwhile, at CIA headquarters, Victoria Lassiter sifts through classified files in her office, while her former assistant Peter Douglas bids her goodbye as he leaves for the night. Suddenly, Lassiter receives an unexpected phone call. On the other end, a disguised and distorted voice informs her that the Ultra program's tough guy is now active, with Mike as the target. The voice ominously predicts Howell's elimination within 24 hours. Agent Lassiter, uneasy about the operation, protests but is sternly instructed not to interfere, with the assurance that the call is merely a courtesy. Meanwhile, on the roadside at a night sky, Mike and Phoebe find themselves immersed in a haze, spending the evening brainstorming ideas for Mike's comic book. Parked near one of their cherished hangouts, their attention is drawn to a tow truck towing away a car that had recently collided with a tree. In the midst of a heightened state, Mike, fueled by the substances they've indulged in, begins a philosophical discourse about the car and the tree. He muses on the car's perpetual motion and its freedom to go anywhere, in contrast to the tree's steadfast immobility. Tonight, the tree did something it had never done before. It halted the car. In a moment of emotional vulnerability, Mike breaks down, symbolically comparing himself to the tree and Phoebe to the car, suggesting that he feels like he's holding her back in life. Phoebe attempts to comfort him, assuring him that this perception is unfounded, and the two eventually retire to bed. As the sun rises, we shift to the CIA headquarters, where Agent Lassiter confronts another agent, Adrian, who has been avoiding her. Lassiter insists that their duty is to protect their former assets, not eliminate them. Adrian counters, labeling Mike as a potential threat. According to Adrian, Mike's persistent desire to leave town is viewed as a security breach. Tensions escalate as they argue over the matter, and Adrian, reaching his breaking point, grimly informs Lassiter that Howell is slated to die today, asserting that there's nothing she can do to save him, a stark reminder of the Wiseman program. In the morning, Mike fabricates a work-related excuse for Phoebe and sneaks off to meet his dealer friend Rose. Intent on salvaging his thwarted proposal plans, Mike illegally purchases a package of fireworks, envisioning an explosive display for Phoebe. Later that evening, Agent Lassiter arrives at the convenience shop to deliver a cryptic message to Mike. Speaking in code, she informs him that the Mandelbrot set has been activated, the Echo Choir has been infiltrated, and they are fielding the ball. Unfamiliar with the coded language meant to trigger his latent skills, Mike remains oblivious, and despite multiple attempts, Lassiter fails to convey the critical information. Upon stepping outside, Mike discovers two individuals tampering with his car. Despite warning them to stay away, they approach with knives in hand. The activation code, unknown to Mike, springs into action. In a sudden burst of skill, he incapacitates the assailants, using boiling soup, a soup spoon, and their own weapon to eliminate the threat. Terrified, Mike calls Phoebe to recount the bizarre incident. Phoebe arrives, puzzled by the attack, and shortly after, the local sheriff arrests them both. Meanwhile, Adrian learns that 2 of their assets sent to neutralize Mike have failed, realizing that Lassiter has activated him. He orders heightened security measures for the town, and assigns 2 additional agents to execute Mike and Phoebe at the police station. In prison, Phoebe urges Mike to stay calm, emphasizing the need for a convincing testimony. However, Mike recalls even more disturbing details. Desperate for answers, Phoebe implores him to share what the mysterious woman from the store had revealed. As Mike repeats the phrase, he senses a subtle change within himself. Soon after, they face an interrogation by a detective, but Phoebe's attempt to speak on Mike's behalf only elicits mockery. The sudden blackout and blaring alarms interrupt the proceedings. Agent Crane storms the entrance with a machine gun, creating chaos by shooting officers. Her partner, Laffer, enters the cells, engaging in a physical confrontation with Mike, who undergoes another personality shift. Crane takes down officers effortlessly, but before she can shoot Mike, the detective restrains her. Undeterred, she continues her pursuit outside, throwing a grenade at Mike, who skillfully hurls it back, causing a dramatic explosion that incapacitates Crane. Later, Lassiter confronts Adrian, threatening to destroy them and proceeding with her assassination plan. Adrian, seemingly powerless, explains that all he has is a cell phone. In the distance, Phoebe, sensing something amiss, angrily suggests that there's a strange mystery behind the chaos. Recalling Mike's mention of a tree, she is guided by an unseen force to calm down and proposes they leave in their car. However, their escape is abruptly halted as the car explodes upon contact with a plastic bag, intensifying the unfolding enigma. At the police station, Lassiter surveys the aftermath of the failed operation, observing the lifeless bodies of the men sent by Adrian. Deciding to activate the Wiseman program for Mike, she contacts Douglas to inform him. However, Douglas, wary of the danger involved, expresses reluctance to get entangled in such perilous matters. Meanwhile, in the car, Mike is lost in childhood memories, contemplating his existence. Phoebe interrupts his thoughts, expressing concern about his well-being. As they exit the car, Mike ponders whether he's a robot with karate skills or a product of biological engineering. Phoebe advises him to stop dwelling on such existential questions. Mike then surprises her by revealing an unexpected talent. He can name 50 different tanks, even though he's never studied such vehicles. Entering a house, they are unexpectedly greeted by Rose, who had mistaken them for cops at the store. The encounter takes an unexpected turn as they navigate the complexities of their predicament. In a different setting, Adrian admonishes the sergeant for establishing a conspicuous base in the parking lot, contrary to his directive for a covert operation. He demands to see the locked resources stored in a container. In that moment, Adrian recognizes Laffer, who mentions that Mike was responsible for knocking out his teeth. In the midst of the confrontation, Mike reassures Rose that he doesn't plan to stay long, but Rose, frightened, worries that the police will soon arrive. In an attempt to lighten the mood, Rose mentions a fantasy football league, leaving Big Harold puzzled. Phoebe, curious, questions Rose about monkeys and masks, prompting him to reveal a belief that the government manipulates them from the outside. He shows them a news report about an epidemic, blaming Lassiter and Mike for the chaos, leading Rose to suspect CIA involvement. In a sudden turn of events, Rose attempts to shoot Mike, but to everyone's surprise, Mike disarms him swiftly. Mike confesses that he has acquired the ability to eliminate others skillfully, but he assures them that he doesn't plan to harm them. Before being confined in a room, Mike implores Rose not to contact the police, and Rose complies, fearing execution. Alone in the room, Mike questions the reality of the reported disease, examining himself in the mirror and concluding it may not be genuine. Meanwhile, Lassiter discovers through the newspaper that Laffer, the man whose teeth Mike knocked out, was a psychopath released from the asylum. Simultaneously, Adrian calls Douglas, accusing him of betrayal for aiding Lassiter. Douglas contacts Lassiter, urging her to reconsider the plan as it could brand her a traitor to the nation, leaving her deeply concerned. In the confined space, Phoebe attempts to escape through the ceiling, but Mike suggests waiting for Rose to open the door. Dismissing Mike's words as those of an addict, Phoebe decides to take matters into her own hands. Meanwhile, Adrian, learning of Mike's location, dispatches 3 assets and orders the place filled with turbine gas. Adrian's men eliminate Rose's companions, leading to a chaotic fight. Phoebe falls from the ceiling, distracting Adrian's men and allowing Mike to take advantage of them and eliminate them. Realizing the danger of the gas, Phoebe dons a gas mask, understanding the nefarious plan they were trying to execute. As Phoebe drags Mike outside, he begins to lose consciousness. Desperately, Phoebe repeatedly shouts at him not to fall asleep, her voice serving as a lifeline to tether him to reality. Her words evoke memories of their moments together before the chaos ensued, and miraculously, Mike regains his awareness. Confused, he asks Phoebe how she knew about the gas. Reluctantly, Phoebe confesses that she was assigned the job of being his girlfriend 5 years ago, a revelation that triggers a panic attack in Mike. Fueled by anxiety, he starts running, with Phoebe chasing him inside the car. In a moment of vulnerability, Mike questions the reality of his existence and accuses Phoebe of lying to him. She cryptically responds that some things are true, and Mike, overwhelmed, begins insulting her. Later, a truck forcefully pushes their car off a small bridge, intensifying their perilous situation. Meanwhile, Laffer, acknowledging his inability to eliminate Phoebe, drags her out of the car. However, instead of letting her go, he pours gasoline on the vehicle, with Mike still inside. As Mike regains consciousness and Phoebe witnesses the impending danger, Lassiter approaches to assist Mike. In the background, Adrian mocks Phoebe for leaving the CIA to be with a young addict and poor man, instead of reporting the Wiseman program from 5 years ago to her superiors. Simultaneously, Lassiter wakes up Mike and asks if he recognizes her. Confused, Mike wonders if she's his mom, but she denies it. Lassiter explains that they met a long time ago when Mike was taken to a correctional facility for using an asset. She was working on an experiment with repeat offenders, and despite others failing, Mike excelled. As a result, she closed the investigation, giving them new identities. Upset by this revelation, Mike is left adrift with a fake girlfriend. Their conversation is interrupted by a man reporting the events on TV, reaching Adrian, who orders Douglas to send a missile to destroy the city. Phoebe, disagreeing with Adrian's plan, attempts to escape unsuccessfully. As Douglas prepares the missile, Phoebe tells Adrian that her boyfriend wouldn't be foolish enough to go back home. However, it becomes evident that Mike has indeed decided to return home to rest, a decision that Lassiter views with concern. Inside the house, Mike takes a break as Lassiter explains their history. She tells him that during experiments, Phoebe always supported him because he consistently passed all the tests. When the investigation closed, Lassiter decided to accompany him to the city so he could adapt. Surprisingly, she chose to stay with him, leaving her previous life behind. Minutes later, a strange sound startles Lassiter, and investigating it leads to an attack by a man. Mike intervenes, throwing the attacker through the window. Other soldiers start shooting at the house, but Mike manages to hide. Adrian is informed about the sighting of his target, and he orders Douglas to direct a missile towards the location. More armed men arrive, but both Lassiter and Mike survive. Adrian orders them to open fire, but Douglas faces a moral dilemma. Moments before the missile launch, Douglas disconnects, knowing he has condemned himself to death. Frustrated, Adrian orders everyone to move on to another action. Lassiter laments the loss of her partner, and they receive a call from Adrian. He asks Mike about his house, and Mike replies that everything is in perfect order. When asked to meet at the parking lot for surrender, Mike jokingly asks if he has to sign something, irritating Adrian. Mentioning that Phoebe is with him, Adrian demands compliance to ensure her safety. During their conversation, Phoebe confesses that she was the one holding Mike back from growing. Adrian enlists soldiers, warning them about Mike's being a highly secretive and lethal target. However, Mike surprises everyone by setting off fireworks while driving, creating chaos. He crashes through the entrance with his car, using the speakers to reassure Phoebe that everything will be fine soon. Mike expresses his desire to have children with her. Adrian, determined to capture Mike, sends a man after him. Using a refrigerator as a shield, Mike maneuvers through the chaos, eliminating the pursuers one by one with unconventional weapons like pans and cold cuts. Despite sustaining injuries, Mike confuses the other soldiers with fireworks and uses a hammer in the midst of the smoke. Phoebe pleads with Adrian to let her go, as she's the only target Mike has. However, he refuses and drags her further inside, ordering Laffer to finish off Mike. In a struggle, Phoebe attempts to escape but is unsuccessful. Meanwhile, Mike and Laffer engage in a fierce fight, utilizing guns and tools. After a beating, Adrian begins to retreat, only to be strangled by Lassiter on the shelves. Seizing the opportunity, Mike grabs a gun from Laffer, who in uncontrollable laughter reveals they were both made in the same experiment. Laughter suggests that Mike was much better and questions who gave the orders. When Mike claims not to know, Laffer comments on the likely sinister nature of the orders. As Lassiter is about to take Adrian's life, Kruger appears and orders her to lower the weapon. Inside, Phoebe finally reunites with Mike, questioning if he's still alive. After confirming it, Phoebe helps him walk to the exit, where they unexpectedly become targets for police officers. In a poignant moment, Mike throws himself on the floor in front of Phoebe, presenting the engagement ring. Phoebe accepts, and just as Mike begins to celebrate, they both lose consciousness on the floor. Meanwhile, Douglas faces arrest, and Lassiter and Adrian are reprimanded by Kruger for interfering in a government Wiseman program. Adrian, claiming innocence as an entrepreneur with low-budget ambitions, expresses that success would have likely garnered congratulations. However, Kruger coldly shoots him despite Lassiter's pleas for mercy. Surprisingly, Kruger reveals that he was the one who called Lassiter to inform her they had found Mike out of respect. Disappointed by her behavior, he regrets not eliminating Mike back then. Despite Lassiter's plea against executing him, Kruger argues for Mike's value, having invested over $400 million in him. He considers Mike an exceptionally valuable and powerful resource, unlike anything seen before. 6 months later, Mike and Phoebe enjoy a romantic getaway in the Philippines. Mike leaves Phoebe at the front desk, where she unknowingly looks into a camera watched by Lassiter and Douglas. Mike enters an elevator and is abducted by Mandarin gangsters, part of Lassiter's plan. Threatened and taunted, Mike observes his surroundings, springing into action. As the closing credits roll, a montage of Apollo 8 animations depicts Mike defeating the gangsters and escaping the hotel with Phoebe. The couple finally embarks on the long-awaited Hawaiian getaway. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.